Oh, of course that would happen, yep.
Today we look inside the Bionicle motor remote control receiver and transmitter. Like the record and play or the code pilot, these unique electronic elements only came in one set. In this case, the 8539 Manas from 2001. They communicate using infrared like many LEGO systems before and after. Recently, the set has become very expensive, but we managed to purchase a receiver and transmitter from Bricklink for just a few dollars each. Also, we could take them apart. Both units take 3 AA batteries, technically making this a 4.5 volt system. The transmitter has various stud and pin connections all around and an infrared sensor at the top. The controls consist of 4 buttons and a channel selector for 1, 2, 3, and all. With the transmitter and receiver correctly oriented, pressing the buttons runs the motors on the respective sides in the indicated direction. The receiver also has a variety of stud and pin connections, as well as a channel selector for 1, 2, and 3. The motor outputs on the ends have colors that correspond to the buttons on the transmitter. Each side also hides an auxiliary output that rotates significantly faster than the primary output. The on button did not appear to do anything. Our unit always seemed to be on. We made a demo vehicle with the Cybermaster tracks to show off the performance. The outputs produce a considerable amount of torque since 8539 drives tracks directly off of the receiver. Additional gearing would require flipping the receiver or adding 2 stages in order to maintain the correct control directions. This system also suffers from the typical skid steer issue where one side runs slightly faster than the other side. Now we can open up the transmitter. It comes apart with just a few screws, and inside we find a very interesting setup. The PCB doesn't have actual switches for the buttons. Instead, it has some tiny metal bumps that connect traces when depressed. More interestingly, the designers simply taped these bumps to the PCB and called it a day. We actually had one with a bit of corrosion, which we cleaned with some rubbing alcohol. The plastic buttons simply rest in the casing, and the inset plastic prongs presumably press on the metal bumps. The left and right set appear to share the same molds, down to the slightly shifted prongs on the lower pair. The PCB also doesn't have an actual switch for the channel selector. Instead, a plastic piece with some detents holds some metal contacts that close different circuits when turned. The receiver comes apart with 6 screws, but the previous owner seems to have lost 2 and mangled some of the plastic around the other 4. The interior looks unlike any motor assembly we inspected before, with 2 identical gearboxes driving the 2 outputs. We saw and felt very little lubrication, to the point that we added a bit of Vaseline to the 2 also interchangeable output sockets. Despite someone opening it before, we found nothing amiss with our receiver, and we simply put it back together. We did find it slightly inconvenient to reassemble. Both the top and the bottom halves have parts that fall out when flipped over. On that note, we hope you enjoyed this tour of the Bionicle motor remote control receiver and transmitter. Consider subscribing if you like what we do, and have a nice day.